Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Ascent podcast. And I'll be your guide today as we talk about the good old fashioned holiday blues. And that's not to say that the holidays are a bad thing. It's just that sometimes for some people, it really can bring about things that cause us to just be out of sorts, out of balance, and just not able to be our true selves. Gentlemen, welcome. How do you feel we have gotten kind of off track when we talk about the connective pieces of family and what that's all about? A lot of it is around A, the holidays or different holiday seasons, and B is just, like you said, the consumerism pieces of it as well. Where have we gotten lost? What's disjointed about that?
A lot more people are going through a lot more than they care to admit to, and I'll be the first one to say that I'm at the head of the line. Uh, you and I talked about this yesterday for a little bit after golf. We're all going through something, and used to be I would share it with a lot of people, and I've my research and what I've seen tells me that doesn't benefit me. Matter of fact, it tells me that I'm going to lose even more the more I share it, because what ends up happening is that it dilutes it. So, as I said to you yesterday when we were talking, I said what I have finally come to the conclusion is there is a time for less voices. So some of the things that I'm going through, I've got to go through them actually on my own. I've got to try to figure it out on my own. And I realize Vinny's going to probably have something to say about that. I already know. But my reality is some of this stuff I have to try to figure out how to work it out on my own. And when I do need help, I can and will ask for that help. I think my history has shown that I have the ability to ask for it. It used to be I would never ask for help. I just would take it and run with it, and it would and just allow it to just grow and fester and eat me alive to the point where I was even unbearable for myself, let alone how other people saw me. This is new ground for me. The fact that sometimes I gotta man up, pull my bootstraps together and kind of figure out my own path and figure out my own conclusion and figure out how to best proceed forward. And it's very daunting at times, because it goes back to something that just makes me crazy, is the feeling of being alone or even lonely. The reason I'm a bounce around a little bit. The reason I decided I was going to take a corporate job at the beginning of the year, because I realized how much of a social creature I was and how I craved interaction with people. Now, what I'm trying to learn now is who to share with and who not to share with. Because I used to not know, I had no filter on that. I shared with everybody. And I came to the conclusion I came to is like, well, some of these people, some people just don't care, but why should they care? What's in it for them? And some people just don't want to hear your problems. I mean, they just don't, because they got their own problems. So it's not that they don't want to hear your problems; they're trying to deal with their own problems. So there's a part you can't be like, I can't be selfish about that, because I want to be heard. You know what I mean? So I've had to figure out that's great. I want to be heard. Time and place, and just how to navigate that. And this is where the rub comes in for me in the holidays. Why I get like I get sometimes, because like if you saw my post yesterday, I'm missing my mom. I'm missing my grandmother. I'm about to be in tears over this. And it's difficult. I'm struggling with it right now. Now that I think about it, it's getting to me. Sometimes I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Chris. And that's the reality of it. And that's part of this whole thing about the holidays is what it really is about is those connections with those that we love, that some that are still with us, some that may be gone. And as you said earlier, that's what we need to really start to be drawn back to and really focus on that and cultivating and maintaining those relationships. Because as we know, the cycle of life, those relationships won't last forever. But you can, when we look back on those times that we've missed out because, well, I didn't, or I could have, or I should have, and we start to have those kinds of thoughts and regrets too, and that's all part of it. So just about energy, effort, and focus, and maybe where it really should be when we have these opportunities this time of year. Vince, let's come to you. I know, as Chris alluded to when he first started, that you would have some things you definitely wanted to share, especially about the going through it alone piece.
You know, one of the things I've learned more recently in life is we do a really poor job, or at least I do a really poor job of grieving. And in that process of grieving, typically I would just, suppress, push it down there. And what I've learned more recently in a lot of these experiences is actually to celebrate the grieving. So to talk about. So one of the questions I would ask Chris would be is, tell me about some experiences you've had with your loved ones, your mom, your grandma, that brought you joy. Like, share those experiences. Like, tell me about them. Tell me about what you remember, because yeah, we're going to cry, and yeah, it's going to bring joy because you'll reflect back on and you'll have gratitude for those experiences. And also sharing that with me and Brian and everyone else, like, oh wow, like that's a pretty great experience, and you'll hold that positive, I don't know, I feel like I feel really compelled to, like, yeah, tell us some stories, Chris Black, because it's just so therapeutic.
Yeah, that is a true piece of it when trying to, going back and reflecting and sharing those good stories and those feelings and those emotions. And it's certainly, it's kind of its own therapy in itself in a certain way that it really does help. Um, for me, I have some of those same challenges, right? There's certain people in my life that are no longer here. And, I guess look back on it primarily from the standpoint of what we missed for various reasons. And then one of the challenges that's there for me, and again, I can speak from my side of the fence, is when you do talk about family and even sometimes long-term friends, uh, we go about life as we just talked about a while ago. We're all living our life and dealing with our own crap and different things like that. So you become somewhat disconnected, right? Which is kind of just natural ebb and flow of things. Um, and where I think the greatest challenge is where or who or where's the responsibility fall to start to try to build that bridge back, right? And one of the things I always tell myself, we always have these phones in our hand, these communication devices, you know, and sometimes, I feel that it's always me calling or me texting or whatever it is to try to keep these communication bridges going. And then I get to this point where I say, it's a two-way communication device. Why should it always have to be me that, is doing that? Right. Yeah. Right. Um, and then I stop. So, and I still don't know how I feel about that necessarily. If I am being overreactive and I should just own that piece of it and continue to try to build a bridge and be the one who initiates, or as Chris said, throw my hands up and you know what, let that go, and that if they don't have time for me, then I don't have time for them. And that's it. Those types of thoughts run through my mind and some of the different relationships all the time. And yeah, it can be a challenge because it can take you to places and emotional things that are running within you that uh, are not necessarily a happy place, for sure. Has anyone else kind of dealt with that or experienced that? I know, Chris, you had your hand up a second ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went through that over the last couple of days with you guys. I mean, I was trying to, I was trying to organize this, right? Because, well, let me back it up. So Vin, you called me and you said, "Hey, we haven't played golf in a long time. Let's shoot for Friday." I was like, "Okay, great. If you're in, so I, being the organizer that I am, I realize that's part of one of my functions, and I gladly own it most of the time. Where I got myself in trouble was in response time. Now I realize that response time is in my head, not in you guys' head per se, and it doesn't make it right, wrong, or indifferent. But I got hung up in it, and I think that was part of the holiday thing. I think on a normal day I wouldn't have tripped, but I had the holidays breathing down my neck. I'm really missing mom this year. Like I've been good the last 2 years. I haven't got overly high or overly low. This year, for whatever reason, it kicked into high gear in my head. And I started having the range of emotions was just insane. If you could be inside my head, what was going on with me, uh, almost to the point where I was ready to attack. But I got no real reason to want to attack you guys. It's in my head. And I'm trying to get through it, and I got the devil on one hand, I got the angel on the other, and he's pardon my French, fuck those guys. I mean, I'm just like, can I just get an answer? I mean, that's it's like I know everybody's busy. I'm factoring everything. I'm like, I know everybody's busy. Ben's got kids, got yada yada yada. Brian's got all this stuff going on. I actually got a bunch of stuff going on, but I'm trying to get this one moment where I wanted you guys with me. And because I realized what I benefit when we're all together. So there's a huge benefit, you know what I mean? Because we're such a great group when we come together. I don't know if I'm guessing you guys feel the same way, but when we all come together, it is absolute. If you saw my post yesterday, the round was fun. Parentheses, I love my golf crew. And that's genuine. But somewhere along the line, I got it all twisted up. I got resentful. I'm like, because I need more. My family's in New York and Virginia. My kids are in LA, but they might as well be on the other side of the fucking planet. Pardon my French. Because for whatever your kids, how kids are, Brian, you haven't experienced this yet, Vin. When your kids get old enough to where they ignore you occasionally. My youngest is doing that right now, and I'm sure she's going through something. But my feeling is, you should be able to talk to me. That door is wide freaking open for whatever reason. So I'm actually just as quiet as it's kept because I haven't mentioned it. I'm not angry with her right now, but I'm super disappointed because she knows how I am, and she knows what it's like to be isolated out sometimes. And I would just love to hear hey, I'm okay. I don't need a full conversation from you, but I do need hey, I'm okay. So I know I'm running around with this, but there's just a lot of raw emotions that end up coming up. And like I said, for whatever reason this year, it all just kind of hit head. And I didn't even realize it until I was knee deep in it, what was going on. So I made myself, I fought my way through the night before because we played yesterday. I fought my way through the night before to get myself right again because I was out there, and I was like, "This is crazy, Chris. They haven't done anything to you. Why are you pointing at them? They've done not a damn thing to you other than maybe a little slow in the response. That if they're guilty of anything, that's it, and that is not a crime. So." Anyway, I this is the part where I say sometimes I got to work my way through it myself on my own to come back to a point. And that's why I was so happy to see you guys yesterday morning. When we all came together, it was just like, I'm with my guys. Order is restored again. We're going to get out here and start smacking that ball around, get some laughs going on. I mean, I didn't even say anything about cigars. You showed up with cigars yesterday, Vin. You showed up with some drinks. Obviously, what I bring to the table. I bring the food. So it ended up being an absolutely magnificent day for me, score or not. I had a absolutely wonderful time yesterday, and today I'm physically paying the price for it because I gave you everything I had yesterday. I literally gave it. I left it all out on 18 holes, and it was over. You know, I couldn't even drink a drink when we met. I was so freaking drained. I drank water. You know, but that's for me. That's the beautiful side of it, how it brings itself together, and I wouldn't have changed a thing for yesterday. Not a thing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chris. And you're right about that. Vince, what did you want to share as far as that goes when we talk about that piece of the pie?
Thanks for explaining that. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you want more communication and check-in. And it's funny, I was thinking about you, and that's why I call you all the time and whatnot. And feeling your energy around like you needing that stuff too. And you're right. I definitely, it's been a long time since we hung out and had that. So that was really, really wonderful. I guess what I'm really diving into is like, you know, what's going on in the triggering of things. Like all these other things are kind of in the you feel like it's impacting. However, like deep down inside, like all this, I almost feel like the three of us or many of us have this ticking kind of like calendar thing where as it approaches it, and maybe it's, you know, you go to Sam's Club, you see all the Christmas stuff or whatever. It's like it starts building up there and you're like, oh shoots,
Hmm.
you know, holidays are coming again. And then it's like, I wouldn't say dread's the right word, but it's just things start happening, you know, and building up. And I wonder if you know, again, there's a lot of things we could do more. One of the principles is having more gratitude and listing out every morning how many things you're grateful for versus just having it for Thanksgiving. You know, what are you thankful for one day of the year? And I feel like the three of us have one very common thing is around, you know, some of our limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
And maybe that's where this commonality and this consistent, because I've got to imagine there's other people out there that are opposite from us. So then it's a question of like, well, what do they have that you know, it's that we maybe did not grow up with, or we currently do not practice, or whatever it is. Like that. That's to me makes me think about this thing. You know, it's like life isn't about finding yourself; it's about creating yourself. So what do we need to do to create whatever it is we want? Yeah, we can bicker about the commercializers and all that stuff, and I just feel like it's just jabber.
Yeah, it's an escape card, right? It gives
Yeah,
us
totally. It's
it
an
gives us a
excuse.
way out.
Yeah.
So let me throw this on the table because I agree with you, and the limiting beliefs is part of it. But where I think one of the roots in all of it is, and this is something we can all always do better, is communication. I think it has a lot to do with communication, and especially from the standpoint of expectation, right? Because we assume so many times that people are in sync with us or on the same page with us. So we have this expectation that we've created in our minds, but we haven't communicated that expectation. So a simple example would be Chris, reached out and said, hey, do you want to golf on Friday? And in his text, he could have said, let me know by 10 o'clock tomorrow. That sets a expectation of when you
Yeah,
need to
true.
do it. Does that make sense? So, but that's that next step that a lot of times we don't do because we feel like, well, everybody should be in my mind and be running on my clock and do things according to what I've set in my brain as the expectation versus actually communicating out what that expectation is. So I think that's something we can all focus to be better at is getting that out of our head and into the universe so people know what it is we are expecting or wanting or needing or feeling or whatever else. Because a lot of the times that's how we approach it is, well, they have to know how I feel about that. Well, no, maybe they don't. Right. But if you're assuming that they do, then that's where the disconnect can come in sometimes. Right. But so just putting it out there so people know. I think matters, and being able to communicate that matters. The other thing I want to get back to, and Vince, you just hit part of that on the head too, is, yeah, you walk into Sam's or Costco and the Christmas crap is everywhere into August already, and this is building up, and then you get them and start getting the invites to the Christmas parties from different companies you work with, and so it's almost like you have to move yourself to this place of, I gotta be joyous, I gotta put on my ugly sweater, and here we go, because the expectation, again, as you go through the seasons, that you do go to this party and you do attend that and you do go here, right? So yeah, there is, I think, some pressure that's built, but the overarching thing, especially with this season, is about giving, right? And we talk often a lot about, some of the common places we get to about givers gain. And I think that's what we really maybe need to try to focus back on, is giving without the expectation of it's unconditional, just and letting that be where you're coming from, and have that be as best you can the places that you choose to engage, where you choose to spend your time, et cetera, et cetera. Let that be kind of what guides you through this season. So that's my perspective on it. It's easier said than done, just like everything else is. But communication, expectation, and giving, I think, really can make a difference. What do you guys think, Chris? What does that resonate with you in any way, or does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think sometimes I was going to mention this in the last segment we were talking about was, I'm an acts of service guy. I've come to understand that about me, and I think it's one of my better attributes, but it is a double-edged sword, because where I'm still trying to find balance in my life is when to give and when not to give. Because I tend to be, that switch tends to be on most of the time. But what it does is it sets me up for these emotional valleys that I go into periodically, where resentments come out. I hasten to use the word anger, because I really don't try to. That's an emotion I don't try to get in touch with very often, because I definitely don't think it benefits me. But it doesn't benefit anybody in my universe. Me being angry, it just doesn't. And it's sometimes it's uncontrollable. So it's one of those ones that I'm very cognizant of, because I know, what we were talking about, the road rage yesterday, the road raging people. And after seeing that TV show, I was like, I'm not that person, but boy, I can get a little mouthy, over some shit that don't even make sense. I think my biggest thing on the road when it comes to that is the fast lane. But anyway, let's move on from that. But the giver's perspective, sometimes, like I said, I love the fact that I'm a giver. I mean, so it's just not, I don't have resentments to me that I'm a giver. I have resentments towards inwardly, about how sometimes I unconditionally give and I probably shouldn't. And that's where, my situation, and I'm learning. I think it's one of those things you learn in real time. There's some people you I don't care how much you give to them, you're never gonna even with a limited expectation, you're still not getting anything back that's going to be satisfactory.
Yeah. So one of the things I've recognized more recently is, so you said acts of service is your love language.
One of.
So it's your dominant one.
Probably.
Okay. So I always thought love languages were, it's giving and receiving. And then I realized it's actually not true. You can have different, giving, and then it's like, well, actually, I prefer not to have acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
So do you prefer to have acts of service as a love language back to you?
Great
Not
question.
necessarily. Not
Okay.
necessarily. I'm going to still do what I'm going to do.
Right.
At the end of the day. And it's not set up to where, okay, I'm going to do this for you and you're going to do this back for me. That's not how my mind works. I think I learned the acts of service thing from my mom. She was like that. She just gave and gave and gave. And she was, obviously, I give through cooking. That's one of the things I give through.
Mm-hmm.
and that makes me feel good. I mean, I enjoy watching you guys because my mother enjoyed that. She enjoyed watching people eat her food, and I enjoy watching my friends enjoy my food. And probably part of that's behind being having being a restaurant owner for many years as one of the things I've done. Um, but yeah, no, I don't have to. It's not. I think more than anything, Vinny. Now that if I'm trying to really put my finger on it, it's the acknowledgement, and that doesn't. So in other words, I don't need to have anybody make a fuss over what I do, but a simple, hey man, appreciate that.
So
That was
words
awesome.
of affirmation.
Yes, the affirmation part.
Okay.
That part is the one thing that I don't know if I want to use the word I need. I don't know if I want to go there. It's what I want. It's really
your love
what
language. Yeah. Your love language of receiving is words of affirmation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the return. He like you said, need or want is tomato kind of thing. But yeah, that's where you are with that. And that's important.
And I think the thing that if I'm gonna, this is tough. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. Right now, what's the big void for me is a lack of love in my one-on-one. Love to be, I'm so happy for you, B, today. I mean, what's going on in your world, your personal life. We're all ecstatic for you. I mean, just ecstatic. Because I think at the end of the day, it's all something we aspire to have. That one person that brings you peace in your life. I know Vinny would like to have that at some point too. At some point, I'm 100% ready for it. I've gone through it all. I'm ready for someone to be with me, walking the walk. How do I get past where am I now? We're gonna, I guess we put me under the microscope for a minute or two here. How do I get past the lack of trust that I have? That is something that is driving me right now because I see what a relationship in my mind looks like. And believe me, it's not so much you're waiting hand on foot for me or blah 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 blah. It's having that commonality that I mean, we're pulling in the same direction. What's important to you is important to me. What's important to you is important to me. That general yin and yang there. And it is so absent from my world right now. And it is literally hurting me sometimes. And I think right now, especially during the holidays, is when I feel it the most. And I think that's at the center of it.
Yeah. Chris, you hit something on the head. I hadn't aligned it quite the way it just clicked in my brain because obviously our overarching topic today is the holidays. And when you start talking about relationships and then the holidays, that's, I think, another source of stress from two sides. One is if you are in that space, as you said, where you're looking for that relationship and you don't have it, then the holidays are a season where you see many other people who are in that mode, right? So that puts that piece of it. This other side of the coin, which I think a lot of us don't think about, but it certainly impacts us, is you're at a family function or a friend's function or a company function, whatever it might be, as we work our way through this season, and you see people who are in good relationships and you see people who are in bad relationships, right? And just like you talked about the trust piece, or so it starts to invoke both sides of your emotions from that standpoint, which even causes you more conflict, right? Because you're like, well, they have a great relationship, I want some of that. And you look at this next couple and you go, oh my God, they're about to kill each other. Maybe I really don't want a relationship. So you start having this angst. And because it's happening through the holidays where you are kind of just thrust into this as a expectation of, I go here, be here, do that, do this, and that's when again it goes back to you going, yeah, I'll just throw my hands up and I'll resign myself from getting engaged in any of these things. But then that leads to the dark side of loneliness and everything else. So I think a lot of people can probably resonate with this and understand that this is a critical time of year that taps into you in so many different ways. and maybe we don't realize it. And I think the best thing we can do, and kind of why we're doing this today, is to talk about it, to actually open up, be honest, and get it out on the table. That's the therapy I think we need to all start focusing on. But finding that trusted circle of people that you feel comfortable doing that. We're not going to come at you from a judgmental standpoint. We're going to be open, honest, and supportive. That's the challenge.
I have some thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So we can all agree that we as human beings are social creatures. So the idea that we living our existence alone is not something that is inherent in our everything. So going back to what Chris said about trust, I've learned more recently that I'm unable to trust others if I'm unable to trust myself. So that's the first part of it. And in trusting myself is really understanding what I have brought to the table, past and present. And one of the things that he said was about like, I'm ready. And in that readiness, I almost think about, well, what is your readiness giving off? Like, what's your vibration? And when we talk about this ideal, so let's just pick the ideal scenario relationship. Well, that's the ideal. And then the question's like, well, have you ever had that? No. Well, then how do you know what the ideal is? How do you reach that vibration and achieve this future thing if you've never ever experienced it? And then there's the other side of it, which is, so it's the abandonment side, the fear of rejection. And then there's like another piece of it, which is the fear of success. So it's like, well, even when you have that and you acknowledge that, are you okay being in that relationship? Because it's almost like, I feel like for me, I've been in that, and then it's just like, oh, this is uncomfortable. This is scary, or it's like, oh, they're gonna, this is not gonna last. And then the whole cycle repeats itself, the self-doubt, all those limiting beliefs. So I feel like for me, especially, that's the future. That's what I want. It's not what my subconscious needs, because what my subconscious needs is, like chaos and, all this other stuff that, it does not provide me the type of person that I am becoming, and the challenge with that is like, it's really hard. It's really difficult. And coming back to what we've talked about already, it's like you need that circle of friends to call you out. Call you out and be like, hey, bro, like, what do you want? What do you want? How can we support you? And you said this too, unconditional, like no judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very important piece of it. So I'm going to kind of bring this home. What I like to do at this point in the conversation, because I think we've kind of shared, how we feel, what our emotions are tied to the season, and what some of those triggers are that come about. So based on that information and what we've talked about so far, we've got roughly a month left in this year as we work through the holiday season. What will you commit to do differently as we work our way through? And I think that'd be important to have our audience hear, what are we going to, because we've talked about the issue, but what are we going to do to try to address the issue? Because for whatever reasons, I think we all agree that what we have been doing is not necessarily working, right? There needs to be some adjustment, some mindset shift, some, focus of what we're working on. So what is that going to look like?
I think I addressed where I'm trying to go a while back. The word risk comes to the forefront of my brain. I've been so, because of, Vince, you talked about the relationships and what hasn't worked in the past and understanding what's worked in the past. And I've gotten to that point where I'm so risk averse when it comes to relationships, because I've gotten burned. By my definition, I've gotten burned. I actually have burned myself a number of times. I'm gonna own my part. Okay. And that's the tapes I'm playing these days is, how can I get away from my old behaviors? And when things needed maintenance, relationship needed maintenance, maybe the relationship wasn't that bad. Maybe my viewpoint on it was askew. And how can I make peace with what's happened in the past? And I think I've been working on it, but I haven't gotten there yet. Even though I say I'm ready for another relationship, I am. There's some things right now that I'm working on in turn. That's that thing where I said I can't share everything all the time. I've got to try to work it out with me. Mm-hmm. And right now, I think I'm in that space right now where I'm trying to work out some relationship inadequacies and potholes that I've encountered and how not to do that again. And that is something that is like right here on my freaking brain, where I'm like, because I mean, for the first, I think we said this a while back. I said, for the first time in my life, I know what I want. I know what I want. It's scary what I want, but I know what I want. So there's a difference, right? Are you with me? Are you guys with me on this? For the first time in my freaking life, I know what I want. And it scares me to think about it sometimes. But now it's here. Now the emotion has arrived. The feeling has arrived. How I see it has arrived. And I desperately would like to get there. Maybe desperate isn't the right word, but I have a strong feeling about trying to figure out how to get there. So today, that's about as far as I can go with it, because I have believe me, once I can get a little further, I'm sure I have more to share. But right now I'm trying to get my brain accustomed to where you really want that, bro. Yes, I really, really want that. I've been having this conversation with myself for probably 6 months now. And part of that, some of this, well, not to say some of this, a lot of this came out from the PSI seminar. I got real with some stuff that I wouldn't have gotten real with had I not been put in that position. So it's the old adage, I say this all the time, careful what you pray for. I'm in pray mode. I'm in very big, I pray what I want, I'm praying for every freaking day. Even on the days when I'm pissed off, angry, not in a cooperative mood, love to just burn the place to the ground. I still, you know how emotional I can be. So I'm keeping it real for you guys, and I'm keeping it real for our audience, because I know somebody out there feels the exact same way I do. They do. I've gotten past the point where I think I'm the only guy that thinks like this. Oh, hell no. There's probably a busload of people that feel the same way I do, but they're holding it in and allowing it to destroy them. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kill that destructive presence. That's what I'm really trying to do. And it is tough right now. I'm giving it because I got so much on my plate. You know what I mean? I think that's the beauty of this all. I've got so many other great distractions that it kind of keeps me, it's my guardrails. I can only imagine if I didn't have those guardrails and those things that I deem as important, and people have put me in these positions that it's important. We need you. Because at the end of the day, that's really what I want. And I need to be wanted. I need to be needed. That's what I need. And now I need that. I want that to happen in my love life. Want someone to love me and want somebody to look at me like, you're my guy. You know what I mean? I'm leaning on you. Oh, okay. Because that's how I'm built. At the end of the day, that's how, as much as I sometimes give off these fragile emotions and this fragile existence, I'm a really strong person down deep. And you know that at the end of the day, you can always count on me. You know what I mean? If it's, especially if it's something that's relative and it's something that's has good intention behind it, and there's an outcome we're looking for, I'm definitely your guy. I need that in my personal life. I need that from a woman. I need that.
Thank you for sharing that. And absolutely. And as I said, there's no try. We're gonna intention and getting clear on it is what matters. And I think we can. That will happen for you.
Well, you know what? You want to say? Let me say this. I'm not to cut you off. I honestly, God, I concur. I concur. My belief system says it's going to happen for me.
Yep. There's two pieces to it too, Chris, as you talked about. As we talked about yesterday, there's getting clear, the clarity of it is one piece, and getting yourself there. And the other big component, and Vince hinted on it a minute ago, is talking about trusting yourself. That trust piece takes time to build and fortify within you too. So, and no one can do that for you. That's something you have to build internally, your own trust, fortitude. So both those things kind of have to be in sync, and that becomes your armor as you then say, all right, now I'm ready to release this to the world, because you feel protected and you're armed, because now you know exactly what you want, and you have the trust within yourself to not only go get it, but once you have it, to work to keep it. Because that's it's twofold, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Vince, what about you?
Well,
what are your thoughts?
it's the one thing I did want to mention is, and that's relevant for this, is that I've learned in the last year or so that, the more, when I hear you say, or when we talk about things like, uh, fear of rejection, all these other things, like, and obviously lack of communication, or not lack of communication, clear communication, all these other things, it's me being inward focused. And what I mean about that is, uh, when I am fearful, I do things that make myself comfortable. I'll avoid, I'll do, whatever it is. I'll binge watch a show, I'll do something like this. It's all the usual things. I'll do things that basically I know I should not be doing, however I'm going to do it anyways. And that's comfortable for me. And that's, again, inward focused, and definitely not part of growth and change. So, that whole change chart and being outward focused, and doing things that are not safe, because the word they like to use, is really important. So, what I plan to do, per your question, is to do things that I have not done ever. So here's the call out. Would you gentlemen like to go and offer some of your time to support others that are more needy? And we'll do it together, whatever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the whole gist of the season, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say that even though I acknowledge that, it's not something that I've actually done.
And to follow that up, if we choose a organization, a charity, or whatever, and we choose to engage with that, then it should not be something that we only do during the holidays. We should
Exactly.
commit to doing it once a quarter throughout the year, right? So that's kind of my point of what I talked about earlier, is how in this season we feel like we do this, we do that, but then once the season's over, we throw it out, and we don't do it again until the season comes around again. So whatever we commit to, yeah, I'd love to be to pick something and get engaged, and let's stay engaged with it. So for me, one of the things, and it's a personality thing, and goes back to like kind of what Chris was saying about trusting in himself and some different things, and how that sometimes can limit you. Um, my 2-word descriptor for myself is stoic nonconformist, and that nonconforming piece kicks in a lot this time of year. I don't want to follow. I don't want to join. I don't want to be with the group. Blah, 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 blah. Right. So when the hand goes up, goes out, and I need to do less of that. So that's what I'm going to commit to do, is to be more open and more receptive to doing the different things that come my way and the different opportunities that happen. Because this time of year can literally build a moat and not deal with a lot of those types of things. So I'm going to commit to doing that throughout the rest of the season. And as I do that through this season, I'm going to, as we've talked about today, I'm going to continue to work to build that muscle so I can hopefully carry that behavior on into the new year, and have it become more of a regular part of me type thing than just having to be focused and be reactive. Just let it become a proactive piece of myself. So that's my objective.
I like that a lot.
The one other thing I want to add is this, and this is the term Chris put out earlier was risk, right? And then there's also a trust factor in there, but risk. So in my coaching, when I'm coaching my clients, we've all heard of setting SMART goals, and which I think most people have heard of that and know what that's about. And I use an acronym that's similar but different. So I call my goals STARS, and that's STARR, right? So obviously specific. The T is time bound, attainable, and attainable really just means that it's from the standpoint of like, I want to go to Mars next month. Well, that's not attainable. Could you go to Mars in your lifetime? Maybe. But so that's what I mean by attainable. Let's make it attainable. The first R is actually risk or risky. Whatever that goal is, you want to establish it to be risk or to be risky, right? So put it out there, right? As Chris says, audacious, right? So those audacious goals. And then the R is actually a reward, or what are the rewards of that goal? Because I think that will help in my mind, and when I'm coaching my clients, that's how I guide them to say, you've got these steps as you go through it, but when it gets tough, you're falling off, you're not following through, whatever it might be. That reward piece is what you can pull yourself back to, because that's what you really want to focus in on. And then the rest of the things just kind of happen because what you're focused to is as you see the reward of the benefit of achieving it. So that's something that I talk about a lot. And I think that's a good way for us to approach the holidays, is when we have to engage with family, friends, et cetera, et cetera. Could it be a little bit challenging? Could it be some risk associated with it? Yes. But what are the rewards? What are the benefits that may come out of it? And try to stay focused to that.
It's funny. I was last night. We talked, and you're like, "Yeah, I'll send you the link for the podcast today." And I'm so conditioned to see a synopsis from you, and so last night I was like, now normally I'd been texting you. I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's something here that I know Brian throws curveballs every once in a great blue moon. And this feels like one of his curveballs. So what I did was I really started to try to think about what your approach to it was. And I know we had talked about a couple of different subjects. And I'm like, maybe this isn't that session where I get to do my homework and it's really about what's here and here. And I'm a prep guy. I like to prep things. I like to get things ready. And it's like taking my golf clubs down to the car the night before. I don't take my golf clubs down the morning of because I don't want to lug all this crap down there, right? And I just started, for some reason, I just let it roll out. And I kept looking last night. I was, right before I went to bed, I looked to see if there was anything, and there was nothing. I was like, oh, okay. I see what this is going to be about. And I'm like, but I'm willing to play. This is sometimes how life has to work. Sometimes we don't get the opportunities to prepare for things that are coming our way. Sometimes we have to deal with them in real time. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, definitely this is going to be authentic. It's, not that anything we've said in the past is not authentic, because it is. It's just we prepare for it. We're professional people. That's what we do. That's what professional people do. They prepare. And I'm like, okay, maybe this just needs to be spontaneous. Maybe that's what this really needs to be. And I'll be quite honest with you, Brian. I think you got a lot more out of me today based on the subject matter, and you definitely got me in a more raw form. And I just needed to let some of it out. I needed to let it go. And I don't know that I would have done that had I got a chance to actually prepare for it. I would have been probably a little more measured. You guys got some of my really raw feelings, and they were. I mean, I'm always going to be honest with you guys. I don't think I'm ever not honest with you guys. I may not give you something, but that doesn't mean I'm being dishonest. It just means that I haven't given you something. And I just thought, I was like, all right, this is what you're asking for, and I'm going to give you what you're asking for. And I'm just hoping that I can keep it together. In reality, I'm sitting here, right, because I'm through this session, I've almost been drawn to tears 2 or 3 times. And I'm not embarrassed by that. I'm at a point in my life now. You see me cry, you see me cry. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
This is who I am. It's one of the things that actually makes me great. Yeah. I understand that about myself. Yeah. So I'm like, screw it. I'm gonna play ball the way I've been asked to play ball today. That's what we're gonna do. And it's been very thought provoking. Because I've been in such deep thought over the last week and change, about everything that has hit me, what I want, reinforcing what I want, asking God, why do I want this, God? Well, clearly I want it. You know what I mean? So, why am I asking you why I want it when whatever reason it's here in me and that's what I want, and I need to be honest about it. I think the thing that really scares me, what am I going to do if I don't get it? I really don't want to think about that. I really don't, because I don't think most people want to think about that. But there is a part of me, it's like, what happens if I don't get that? But then I immediately flip and I'm like, but I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. It's going to come to pass. I have to be patient. I have to keep putting in the work that I've been putting in for this last almost 2 years now. I got to keep putting in that work. This is not the time to bail on me, because that's ultimately what I'd be doing. I'd be bailing on me, not on you, not on anybody else, not the object of my desires, any of that. I'm going to be bailing on me, and I need to learn how to not bail on me, because I know how to do it. My abandonment issues, kick in, and I use that as a convenient excuse to be surly, go sideways, say some shit that I really didn't probably mean. At the end of the day, there was stuff that I was feeling, but maybe I shouldn't have said it, all of that. So, this is a heavy crown I'm wearing right now. And I sometimes ask God, why are you putting this on me? Why do I have to run with this burden? And I keep coming back to it's part of the process, even though I'm resentful of the process sometimes, because I am. This is part of the process. And if I want what I want and I want it to actually work out, I've got to go through this. So I make sure I don't screw it up when it finally, arrives in my face. I'm prepared. So there's a lot of dynamics to this. And this is where my brains go sometimes, and why I look confused sometimes, because I am confused. The old question, why me?
So you were absolutely right, Chris. You did not get a synopsis for those very reasons. So, and it's funny because knowing you about midnight last night, I said, Chris is probably sitting around right now. This is what I'm thinking in my head, going, what the hell?
Where's my synopsis?
What's this synopsis?
Where's my $2?
I have this big, huge grin on my face going, yeah, that's exactly what he's doing right now. But gentlemen, thank you. It's just been enlightening. Different people, different ages, different stages in their life, who are just looking to either one of two things. Feel like they're not alone. One piece, oh gosh, not just me feeling that way. And then just the second piece is maybe looking for some ways to combat, work their way through it, and to be able to move forward in a positive light. And I think we've shared a lot of different pieces on both sides of that. So, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care now.